I want to introduce our panel. So our first panelist is Dennis Shin. Dennis is from Bemo. If anyone knows about the sphere, then you've seen Dennis's work in the atrium and Bemo's work. My next panelist is Jen Bryson. Who's seen the show Atlanta? It's won a few Emmys, right? Or maybe the latest show, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, right? Jen's the assistant editor on that. She's an amazing, talented editor. Then we have my buddy Ben Holmes, who came all the way from the UK. And if anyone is interested in live sports production from anywhere, well, Ben works with Red Bull Racing. So he's doing everything on Lucid Link in real time. And our last panelist is my friend Jackee Chang. Jackee's an independent filmmaker, really shining the light on some atrocities that are happening throughout the globe. But she's just an amazing woman as well, doing everything in the cloud with Lucid Link. And then our master of ceremonies, or in other words, moderator, is Vashi Nedomansky. So has anybody seen the first Deadpool? Well, Vashi was the editor on the first Deadpool. He's amazing. Amongst other things, Shark Ninja, and you can go through it. But I want to thank Vashi for being here because he's been using Lucid Link. He's a fan. He's a friend, and he's going to take it away.
Thank you. Thank you, Julie. And thank you everyone for taking time to visit with us. We have like 40 minutes here, so we have a lot of stories to tell, and we have a really nice mixture of different editors and post-creative partners, and in different genres too. It's not like, oh, we're all feature film editors. I work in feature films. We have a really nice mix of TV and VFX and sports and entertainment and everything. So it's going to be nice to be able to pick their brains and share our experiences with you. Like Julie said, I've been using Lucid Link for almost 4 years, or just over 4 years. And it's really special to me because the main part of why we all use it is all our assets, all our data, everything we have lives in the cloud, and it comes up in a hard drive on your desktop. Doesn't matter if you're a Mac or PC or whatever you're using. So it plays like a local drive, but everything's in the cloud. And I think that's the first takeaway you have to understand. After the pandemic, we had all these issues with how are we going to edit products? How are we going to edit no matter what genre, no matter what content? And the answer was usually take your drive home, make a duplicate drive so everyone's sharing it. And the first thing that happens is I'm missing media. Do you have that media? I don't have it. Well, I can't show the cut. You know, oh, this is an old VFX tape. Where's the new one? I don't know. Someone has to Dropbox it to me. So Lucid Link came in at a time to give a solution that was absolutely ready for the moment for anyone that's a content creator, a filmmaker, storyteller of any sort, to have all of their assets living in one spot, accessible by your team members, and everyone on your team can use it. And then also, it doesn't matter what time of day it is. You know, the internet doesn't stop. I mean, so it's always there. So I want to just go through our guests here and have them try and share their stories in their specific disciplines of how they use that. So Jackee, would you like to tell us what you've worked on and just how you incorporate Lucid Link into your workflow personally?
Sure. Is my mic on? Okay, great. I should speak up? All right, cool. I'm working on a current project. It's a documentary, and right now my post-production crew is a little global, based in Vietnam, Philippines. I'm in West Coast. I have an editor in the East Coast, and then I have my producer who's also in the West Coast, but not in the same city. So we're a little bit spread out. One of the things that we want to figure out is let's not duplicate work. Let's not lose our own data. And having a file system that shows up on your desktop like magic is so dependable. So we love that. What we do is with our Lucid share space, we put our proxies on there actually. And that way we know that our OCFs will still be safe. And then we have all our documentation that we are using on Frame and Review for Frame. And that's kind of our workflow currently.
And what software do you use just for your editorial process? What do you prefer, or what are you using on this one?
Well, my editor prefers to use Resolve, but I use Premiere as well.
Showdown. Post-production showdown. All right, cool. Ben, can you tell us what you're working on and how you use Lucid Link in your workflow?
Yeah, for sure. So my company, the company I run, do quite a wide variety of different things with Lucid, everything from big long form documentaries we've done. But what we started off doing was my main client, which is Red Bull Racing. was trying to do content creation from the racetrack. So we work in 20 different countries. We're very limited in bandwidth, very limited in space. You know, as an editor crammed in the corner of an office for years before the pandemic, sometimes that was me. And then, you know, like a lot of us trying to solve those pandemic problems, but then figuring out how we could make it better after that, you know, so sharing that and expanding what we did. And we kind of reached a tipping point. We realized we couldn't go back to how we were doing it before. It wasn't just like a fix. It was an improvement.
It was like a global change of everything in terms of how we approach post-production as professionals and also independents, because I'm sure with your situation, doing sports like that, you must have so many different kinds of cameras and codecs and different frame rates and everything. What do you use to edit on to manage all those different assets?
Well, I'm going to say it the English way. I use Premiere.
Premiere. Okay.
But we can say Premiere if you like. Yeah. And then we have, I guess for coloring, we're now bringing on professionals who are using Resolve. So there's a mix of that, but we've been Adobe for a while now. Yeah.
Thank you, Ben. Jen, could you tell us a little bit about yourself and the projects you worked on and what Lucid means to you?
Well, the first time I learned about Lucid was when we were starting production on seasons 3 and 4 of Atlanta, which is back in 2021. And that was like personally a very intimidating time for me because I was having to learn a lot of new workflows on the fly. I don't love having to work with new software while I'm trying to run a show. But we were introduced to LucidLink by Adobe, and our first demo with them was like magic. People have already said it really is a magical thing to have these files available to you immediately. We have our projects running on LucidLink, so they update immediately for everyone involved. So my editor can finish his cut and I can immediately go in, export that cut, and I don't have to worry about anything being missing, anything offline. It really is seamless. And that was like very special to me, is how easy it was to use, because that's a big deal when I have a million other things to be worried about.
That's the one thing. It's like we want to focus on the creative process and not be stymied by technical glitches or something being offline or not missing. You got to reach out to someone. Do you know where it is? Like, you can't have that like at a professional level, but why not have that at every level where it's just simple and clean and efficient?
Absolutely.
So we'll get back to you, Jen. Don't worry. And Dennis, rounding off our group, can you tell us a little bit about something about your exciting project recently using LucidLink?
Yeah, so I'm a director, CD at a design animation studio called Bemo, and we're fully remote. Used to have a space downtown Los Angeles in the Arts District, and then that fateful March 2020, I remember it so well, when the executive order came down, everyone's going home, and so I literally remember like scrambling in the studio, you know, like trying to install remote software and just trying to figure out like how are we going to keep our active projects running. And at the time, like, you know, the complaint was, are we going to work from home for like 2 weeks? This is 3 weeks. This is terrible. And then that turned into 2 months and 3 months. So we're now fully remote as a studio. And I became like the accidental, remote workflow guru. Like we just had to figure it out. And so stumbled upon LucidLink. You know, during pandemic, a lot of platforms were like hyper accelerating all of their R&D. There was a lot of solutions, but Lucid was the one that literally like you could just sign up for it, try it, and it just worked, and it just disappeared into the background. So we're fully Lucid. We have 4 file spaces. And yeah, I mean, the rest is history.
And your work on the Cube just down the street here, can you tell us something?
Is that,
because that was really interesting.
We call it the Cube under NDA, the Cube?
Sphere, sorry. Bad, sorry, yeah.
So the Cube, yeah, it's amazing.
Sphere.
Yes, we've been working with the team at Sphere. We helped with the opening. You know, the exterior lit up, I think, July 1st or 4th of July weekend. And then the event space opened up, September 29th, the end of September. So our team helped create an hour and a half of content. We did holographic, animations that's in the atrium that Julie got to see last night. And yeah, I mean, fully on Lucid, we had about 25 international artists, just living on
your
Zoom.
team, and they're all remote, all hitting the same project, all hitting the same
time.
tool source, the file spaces. Okay.
Yep. We have a, linear pipeline, very heavy in Adobe. We also use Premiere. How do we say it? How do we say it?
Help us out, Ben.
Premiere.
Yes.
There we go. Classing this place up.
Yeah.
I love it.
Houdini, Cinema. So it's our linear pipeline, but our back end is now Lucid, and we're never going back.
It's great. And again, like, this is a really wide, diverse group of filmmakers and storytellers. And for my side, like, right now I'm editing a documentary about my father called Big Ned. He was a professional hockey player, the first one to defect from communist Czechoslovakia and play in the National Hockey League here. He actually worked with the Golden Knights the first 2 seasons as their head scout. So we have a lot of history here. And I played professional hockey here in Las Vegas back in the 90s when the Thunder was here. So this is real special to come back. But with my situation in the documentary, I have almost 5 terabytes of footage, assets, data, everything in my file space. And a file space is what we call the drive that mounts on your desktop. And like it was mentioned, you can have several file spaces. So each project can have its own file space, come up as its own individual drive, which keeps things really simple and, again, clean. It's not like you're logging in somewhere and then there's some snaky route to get through and you can't see it. It's just right there. And that's a comfort factor for anyone that's working in post-production. It's simple. It's right there. It's either open or it's not. If you open it, there's your assets. Everyone else sees the same things, which for anyone working in post, again, it's so comfortable to know you're current, you're active, everything is there when you need it. And so that's my project, like almost 5 terabytes. That's insane that usually I'd have an 8 terabyte drive, then I'd send it to other people. In my situation, I have VFX artists in Pakistan and India that I communicate with. I have the file space. They have their own folders in there. They have access to everything. I have my music team here in North America, and it doesn't matter where they are. They can just access the project. Everything's current, and I find that a very freeing way to work and to trust it. It's secure. I've worked on a lot of studio projects. Security is critical. That was a big turning point of the pandemic. Like, we can't let editors go home with drives. They're going to leak the film. No one's going to leak any films, but I understand their concerns. But having the encryption and everything else at the highest level is something that you do need for yourself and for anything else. And, we're going to see this going further. Can you tell me a little bit about the workflow that you're using, and then what are some time-saving things that you've learned to embrace with LucidLink?
Yeah, I mean, with all our assets to get it transcribed, there's no way we could have done it without it being in the cloud. I will be sending hard drives over to Vietnam because the transcribers are just, let's be honest, like, they're so expensive in the States, right? So you should send it to the country of origin. That's where we shot it, and give the locals some of the money back, right? So this is kind of an amazing way for them just to access this thing. They can just load it up. I don't need to encode. I don't need to do anything. They already just use the proxies. They transcribe it. They put the files there. I have my SRTs, and I move forward, right? And then with the producer, they don't have to access a different folder to actually look at what is the transcription, what is the translation. Everything is in one space. I mean, we use cloud sync services before, and those who don't understand what sync services mean, they delete shit. And then all of a sudden, everything's fucking missing. And I'm just like calling my friend the other end of town, I need that backup now because someone just deleted everything. And I think this is one of the things about Lucid that's really wonderful is that, it's just a file system. It's not complicated. It doesn't have this thing what's syncing. You can pin things that are important. So it's really good to prioritize our workflow that way.
And Ben, can you tell us like, in terms of amount of footage also, I'm curious, like, when you're having that many cameras and that many events going on, how much storage are you using in LucidLink on average or just in general? And then how have you saved time?
Yeah, so the problem we had to solve was limited bandwidth, and that's at the tracks. So when we're working, we might only have 30 meg, 50 meg connection. That's on a good day. And you also can't rely on the editors necessarily having all the bandwidth. So, and we didn't want to stop. We didn't compromise what we were doing. We wanted to shoot everything 4K. And we're doing that mostly for social use, like a lot of vertical video being pulled out of 4K video. Everything has to work for everybody, and we didn't want to compromise any of that. But how can we manage what might be a couple of terabytes worth of media over the course of just one weekend? And so we use proxy workflows. Everything gets proxied. the proxies go on to Lucid, and the editors work off the proxies, and that gets around so many of the problems that I think maybe that's a thing that people look at with Lucid. They go, oh, well, I can get that in the cloud, but then how am I going to read it? How's my internet going to work? How is this going to function for me? And there's lots of great features in there, like the pinning, which is a way of telling it to cache the things you need. And they have a panel now, which has, again, changed everything for us, where you can just pin the bits you need.
Panels in Premiere Pro,
yeah,
like exclusively in terms of, yeah.
But what made it work for us was that proxy workflow.
Sure.
And to be able to say, I just had a show where one of the editors is based over in California. You know, he's barely got a connection, but we managed to get him up and running. The nicest thing is when you bring a new editor on to that and they have that little aha moment and they're like, oh yeah.
We were having a conversation when we first met, and I just asked, like, tell me about the first time you saw Lucid Link, like, in action, being demoed. And all of us had the similar reaction of, like, how is that working? I don't understand. Like, it's in the cloud, but it's here also. And it was seamless and no lagging. We were just rolling through the timeline. And honestly, I saw it 4.5 years ago and I didn't understand how it worked. I'm just happy it does work, and I've used it ever since. That was like a aha moment for me as well. Jen, do you guys use a proxy workflow as well on all those giant shows? And how much footage are you dealing with? Are they shooting 2 cameras, 3 cameras, or what are you dealing with?
It's a mixture of a single cam and 2 cameras, but what was really special about working on it with Atlanta is that we did season 3 and 4 at the same time. So they shot both seasons and then we finished everything. So we had a ton of media. We're working with proxies. That's very important for even just your editing software. But to be able to have it all in one place, organized the way that was important to me as an assistant, and sort of out of my editor's way was a big deal too. So they didn't have to worry about how many different places this media had to be stored because they were just looking at Lucid.
Right.
And that was not something that they needed to worry about at all. It was my job to worry about it, and they got to just work.
And out of curiosity, because you're part of a team and this is a big show, how many people were accessing Lucid Link, the file space, like production wise? How many people are involved?
I'd say, let's see, at least 4 people at any given moment, but then we had our dailies house involved, so they were uploading to us and we could immediately pull that down and start working with it. We had our VFX artist on it, so he could start pulling media there. We sort of included everyone on it because it became our way of transferring files to the rest of our teams. So what started as a solution for just us around Los Angeles became our solution for our Europe season, which was around the world.
So again, doesn't matter where you are, just connection. I mean, laptop, a connection, and Lucid Link, file space. Yeah. And, Dennis, did you have giant files as well? Like, are you dealing with, I think in the video component of the sphere, as it's known, not the cube, were there huge files that you're dealing with, or how does that work?
Yeah, I wish in a couple of weeks we'll be able to promote with some of the stuff that we're doing in the venue space. But yeah, in the actual venue space, it's 16K, 60 frames per second, 12-bit color, DCI-P3. So this is like a ginormous leap from our normal UHD deliverables. So the last renders we did, I think we did like 2.5-minute tests, and those deliverables were 7 terabytes. And that's just one render. And obviously you're rendering several times. So yeah.
Do you experience any like glitches or lag time using Lucid Link, even with those, that size of files?
No, honestly, truly, like ever since we moved fully to the cloud, and really like, I guess I kind of represent the small to medium-sized studios. We were like proper space, downtown, Synology, 10 gigabit switch, Cat 6, hipster decor, like we had the whole 9. We had an IT services that came in that helped us with all that, 15 boxes, SSDs. But it's really like you really need proper IT support for that. And that is
it's important.
It's important. Yeah, it's not to poo-poo on that world. Like that on-prem workflow is the way that we came up. But for us, it just made sense to move to the cloud. And once we started using Lucid for our backend, we didn't need a lot of those IT services because it just works. It's so seamless. Sorry, I didn't.
No, that's exactly no. The question was like, what's your work experience with it? Because we're always used to some solution, and there's always like a downfall. There's always like one piece missing where it's like a lot of storage, but it's slow, or fast, but you can only have, 500 megabytes of stuff. LucidLink was the first time I've had nothing holding me back from being creative. And we were talking about it before, but we want to spend time editing, telling the story, not relinking files and all that stuff. What I wanted to say was that we were all hinting upon is like the way, again, I don't know the technical terms that you can ask later during the Q&A if anyone wants to know, but what LucidLink does is, if you pin a folder or a sequence or a certain file, it'll cache it locally in like an SSD or something that you have nearby could be 50 gigabytes, could be 40, doesn't matter. But it's actually streaming from the cloud just the chunks where your playhead is or what you've assigned to be priority. So that's going up and down. It's not downloading the entire video file. If you have a 12-minute take or something, it's not downloading that. It's based on your playhead or based on what you've cached locally. That's what it's pulling from to get that feedback, to get that real-time playback, which is critical. We can't edit without real-time. Doesn't matter what genre, what discipline, whatever. So that's critical to me. And that's the magic for me, having that instant feedback, the real-time playback, because it's harnessing the power of the cloud and your local decision-making to assign. It's important. Do you ever go back to a different way? Just go back to sharing hard drives or going to a studio where you have 10-year-old computers and really shitty, like, hardware? Do you want that?
Vashi, I'm not as strong as I used to be, so probably not. I used to have these big-ass lacy drives, right? We all have them, Firewire 400, 800 or whatever, and I had them under my car, and, they're heavy. They're really heavy. No, I think one of the things, we were like talking about how the pandemic kind of led us into collaborative workflows, right? But one of the things I believe that we always had this desire to have a more global team and a more diverse team. And I don't foresee it ever changing. And in fact, I would like to make a feature request to the Lucid team. I mean, I'm waiting for my mobile devices to kind of give me something. So
it's coming. We have confirmation.
I'm all about going into the cloud. I'm just waiting for that ecosystem, Julie.
Last question for you. Worldwide, you have people using the file space on your project around the world. It's not just
Yes. Yes. And I think, even actually my only person who didn't know about Lucid was my producer in LA. I was like, what?
Of course, the last to know.
Yeah. So I'm educating people, and you know what? I'm an evangelist. I'm not paid to speak, but I do love the product.
Ben, is your team also global, or how?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so we'd always have somebody wherever the production's going on, but everybody else is working remotely. I was going to say the main thing that we found is we've talked a lot about the technical side of it. I feel like it's made a cultural change to how we're working, because, increasingly people would like to spend more time at home. They would like to spend more time with their families. Work schedules haven't got any better, but we're all trying to make that work. And I spent 20 years on the road. I missed a lot of my kids growing up, and I was a compromise that I had to make at the time. I don't have to make it anymore, and it also opened up a bigger talent pool for us. It makes it much easier to bring people in. And I've got editors who worked on our show, lived 3 hours away. It was impractical for them to come and be with us, even if that had been a better workflow, which it wasn't, so it makes it easier to work with more people that you want to work with, and it makes those people's lives a bit better.
I like that. The human component of the product.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, we are humans. Like, who works at home right now? Like, either full time or majority of the time. Yeah, there we go. I prefer it. Yes, we're talking like the balance between life and work. Sometimes you can control yourself too much where you're always working, but I'd rather do that than have the 2-hour commute every day where I'm miserable. And usually my best idea comes when I leave the studio. I'm on my way home. I'm like, oh, I should try that, but I can't do it till tomorrow at 9 a.m. And it just eats you up. Instead of now I can literally get home and just do it, or hopefully mobily make my changes while driving down the 405. And can you add anything to that? How's it affected your life and the teammates around the world that is it a better process for you?
Well, sure. I actually want to call out that it's not just like around the world that we're using it. My partner and I are cutting a short film right now with computers in the same room, and we're using this. Like, that's how we're sharing our project. So it really is scalable, whether it's global or not, whether you need a terabyte of footage or not. Like, it really just can move with you, and it's so elastic in that way, which I really appreciate, because I'm never worried about like, well, how many terabytes is this actually going to end up being, and what size
latest,
drives
Julie,
are-
what is the limit? How much can you store in a LucidLink file space? No limit.
That exist?
No limit. No limit. Reach for this.
Just keep buying more cloud.
Buy more cloud. And Dennis, for yourself?
It's awesome to onboard artists, that they don't really have proper remote workflows as best practices yet. I feel like the pandemic has kind of reset the wild west of commercial advertising anyways. So every studio kind of has their COVID patches. They're using, a different hodgepodge of tools to keep the projects going. But it's really been a pleasure to, bring artists into our projects, onboard them. Literally all you do is download the client, change your password, point your SSD, and then it just works. You never talk about it again. And when COVID first started, a lot of medium-sized studios, we were using, can we name competitors?
Yes.
It rhymes with Google. But yeah, we were using Google Drive and Dropbox, and it's not for production. I use it every day for my photos and for my, PDFs and things like that, but it's not built for what we do, for multipass EXRs, for renders, for metadata to show up, for me to throw up a QuickTime and have it show up, for my artist to start slap comping, even though it's not fully sunk. It's just, once you switch over, you see that LucidLink is really built for our community, for production, and that the support is amazing. Like, the Slacks are super active. People are chiming in to help you. Like, that just doesn't exist with the other guys. Yeah.
I was going to say that, in a similar vein that, what I was going to say. I had a really good question. Sorry about that. I was going to say that, what used to be normal was in any workflow, if there was a VFX, the editor would export a QuickTime or something equivalent. They'd upload it, Dropbox to someone else. They'd download that, do the VFX work, export their QuickTime with the VFX, then upload that to Dropbox or whatever. Then I download that, put it back in the timeline, line it up, make sure it's frame accurate, and then make sure it's the right version. If it's stacked, turn off everything else. That's too many steps to make one creative decision of a VFX or anything. And that could be a music edit or whatever. All those steps to create all this useless data that's then hogging space on a hard drive or wherever. Now, with Premiere, with my workflow, and I'm sure everyone here, you're in the Premiere Pro timeline. You send something to After Effects using dynamic link. My VFX artist will open that dynamic link, do the work in After Effects, close it, and it ripples and opens on my end in Premiere Pro. I've not created any new assets. I've not created new media. It's all living in one timeline, and nothing extra was used. So you're saving space, you're saving time, and you're having the confidence that that's the latest version. That's the latest VFX. It's not, well, I emailed it to you. Oh, I didn't get the email, or I didn't get the update. That's the worst feeling. And then when your producers want to see a cut and you're like, everything's good, but there's 3 shots that are not the latest. I can't really get into it now, but we'll have it later today. But if you want to see it now, that's it doesn't, you're not coming off unprofessional, but there's better ways to handle it. And that should never be a situation. When you're ready to screen, everything should be updated. Everyone should be ready to go. To get to the final here is there anything else you want to share about LucidLink and your experience? How has it changed how you approach projects, or anything that it saves you either time or money? One other thing I'll say, and I'll stop yapping, not having to buy those hard drives, those lacies, those anythings, whatever. I have 100 of them at home. I have no power cables that work on any of them. There's boxes and cables. I try them all. I'm jamming it in. I don't know. The data's probably gone forever. I like just putting it in LucidLink. So is there anything that you'd like to
rebuild those for you, Vashi?
What?
Rebuild those for you.
Yes, please. I need it.
So when I was younger, I was trying to find a way to not carry these hard drives that are so heavy, because I'm actually quite small. And so I used to build these SSD drives myself. I'm like, F this, I can do this solid state drive. I can save myself $400. All I need to do is get the bus. I don't even need to use power, because I can power by the computer. And then you're like, how many daisy chains can I do for this whole thing craps out? Don't try it. Don't try it. So one of the things, the tedium, anyone who's worked in post enough, you're basically a workaround expert. You find any solution to solve all your problems. And I think this is the key to Lucid, is that you don't need to waste that time. It's literally the hard drive in the cloud, and it works like anything else because it is a file system, right? And I love the feature of the pinning, like we're saying. You can go local without internet, or you can be tethered. But I think essentially saving of the time that you cannot get back, that's priceless. You can't beat that.
Great points. Ben, anything to wrap up with?
Yeah.
What affected you?
What I wanted to say was I think that it's a hard sell, like as an abstract. Like what's Lucid is an abstract, because we mentioned Google Drive and Dropbox, and I get that from people going, why can't I just use Dropbox? And then that goes away when people use it. And, we really haven't mentioned it, but the whole idea of having proper cloud storage, true cloud storage, the fact that we have people working on projects and those projects update in real time. So everything we do is collaborative. We're using productions in Premiere. We will have 20 different projects within that production. All our rush is in there. Every editor's got a project. The fact that I can trust that those projects are what they are meant to be, and they weren't some version from 4 hours ago. That's the thing that's the light bulb thing when you start working on bigger projects, but it doesn't have to be a bigger project. I think it's just like as an individual working that way is infinitely better as well.
I find it scalable for any project. I just want access to my stuff.
I just open my laptop and use it for file transfer quite often. Just literally drop a file in and have it be available to somebody else. Just on its own is worth it for me,
And you mentioned earlier there's now a Lucid Link. There's a panel within Premiere Pro that gives you additional control over these settings, so you can assign what is being shown as a priority, and it's visible, and it shows you how much storage is left in your cache. Again, these are 3 optimizable components that give you the control, because every system is different. Not everyone has the fastest computer, the fastest, internet connection. This helps you dial in so you have a seamless interaction with the software, with your data, and helps you keep cutting. Jen, would you like to finish up with anything on your end?
Yeah, speaking about the panel in Premiere, I think it's been really helpful for me as an assistant, because one of my big jobs as an assistant is like defending the footage for my editors. Like I don't want them to touch anything in the file space. I just need them to mess with the software. That's it. So when it comes to them starting a new sequence or starting on a new scene, they can go into that panel, say, I'm working on this scene today, hit pin, and never even open the Finder, never even look at the files. And that is really great for me, because I know that they're not going in there and like deleting things or moving things around. Like that is my nightmare. So it helps me to play defense very easily.
Very nice. No, it's important. It's extremely important. That peace of mind is, you can't really put a price on it oftentimes. Dennis, can you wrap it up, buddy? Wrap it up.
I got the quote of the day.
Oh.
I want 7 cents every time you print this, Julie. Okay, here it is. All right. There's nothing more taxing to the creative process than technology that gets in the way. And what's awesome about Lucid Link is, honestly, you install it, you incorporate it into your workflow, into production, and you never talk about it again. And I just find that every other remote workflow and kind of patchwork of using Google Drive, Dropbox, trying to sync local hard drives, and there's Resilio, and there's all these other things. You're just constantly battling with it. You're talking about it all the time. And so that's why I love Lucid Link, because it just works. Wild horses could not drag me away from Lucid Link. That's quote number 2.
That's 14 cents.
14 cents.
There we go.
That's
now
14.
We're making a difference. It's great. I know I appreciate everyone's stories about their experiences. I'm in the same boat. I find it an indispensable way to run my production pipeline. I trust it. It hasn't let me down. I don't expect it to let me down. In the future, is there anything that you guys would like to see from Lucid Link in moving forward? The one thing I'm waiting for, obviously, there's a lot of proxy workflows. In my studio for the last 6 or 7 years, I've never used proxies. I've always used the camera negatives, be it 8K red or 4K or 3K area, RE raw, whatever. You have to have a strong computer to deal with that, but I don't have to have a conform downstream. I'm literally using the final material. I can send it to the editors for the VFX and stuff. They're done at that resolution, then I export. Is there something that you'd like to see? I'd like to see 4K access on Lucid Link. I'm sure the Magic Mojo can be slowly cranked forward, but is there anything you'd like to see?
I definitely like to see the the mobile thing, but I also think that if there was an integration with some of our camera friends, that would be nice. I mean, I love Adamus. I love all these other people, but it would just be nice to get it straight up there. I mean, because essentially when you're doing production, the most important thing is you have posts. So that time, if we can shrink that time, that's another magic part of production.
A lot of Lucid Link productions I know are used in collaboration with Frame.io, where Frame will get it to the cloud, and then you just pass it over to Lucid Link, and then you have a direct access to the camera negatives, and they make the proxies at the same time. So you can choose in the post workflow, just give them the proxies, keep the camera negatives. You can have the camera negatives in Lucid Link. Just don't use them. Use the proxies, and then relink at the end when you conform. Is there anything else, Ben?
Well, I did get a little sneak peek, or I've heard a few things are coming, so they're all very exciting. I think that the file transfer side of Lucid is kind of like undersold, and having the ability to bring stuff in from external users and give stuff to external users, I think will be a big feature in the future. It's like we use Frame for approval,
right?
But we also use it for file transfer, and I could see a situation in the future where we didn't need to use that.
Sure. I'm sure it's coming. I can feel it.
Nice simple request there, Julie.
There we go. Jen?
I'm pretty happy, so.
Yeah, no complaints. Smart. She'll be back next year. She'll be doing the moderation on that one. Dennis, can you?
I don't know.
What's a positive thought here, kid?
I don't know if this is already possible, but because we're dealing with such huge file transfers and data, I wonder if there's a way to like command line directly to the file space without using the client, because we're using render farms and, cloud instances of different boxes. I think right now all the transfer is happening like file space to file space, correct? Yeah.
No,
I wonder if there's a way because again, like 8 terabytes, if there's a way that I could
zap it through
somehow, that and a t-shirt. That's it. That's all I want.
Oh my God. Well done, Dennis. Well, we have a couple of minutes left. We can do questions now. And when our time expires, we can move over if there's any other questions. So does anyone have any questions go ahead in the back to the left. Do you have a mic? Thank you.
Hi. Ben was talking about the proxy workflow particularly and what was going from the circuit and being able to edit remotely. What I want to know is what's the next step of the workflow with Lucid? How are those vertical videos getting on social? Are you having to relink conform? Are you just going up with the proxies? What's the next steps?
Yeah, so what we've found is that the proxies themselves are good enough for social use. So proxies currently being generated, and we are actually uploading those proxies a lot more quickly into the cloud than we could the high-res media. So the high-res media might take, we're on limited bandwidth. It might take us a day to get all the high-res up. The proxies are there within minutes. That first off, that helps the editors. Secondly, that helps the social teams because they can just use those files straight away and put them on the web. So yeah, that's been a big step for us. It's another good reason for. I'd love to see more proxy integration into Lucid. It'd be great if Lucid made the proxies for me. I mean,
Julie, are you taking notes?
Lazy. I would like something else to make all the proxies for me. But yeah, that's a big part of that for us.
Can I add to this really quick? So if once you add the proxies into Lucid, one of the things to understand before you put it into your sequence is to actually know what your deliverable is at the end. So Ben was saying, if it's good enough for social, you can keep the proxies as the sequence based on that source. But if you know that your OCF and what you want to deliver potentially is 8K, you should probably use a proxy on the 8K sequence. And then you can, in Premiere, you can go connect back to high res, and then that way that's kind of the
one button. You can toggle between the proxies and the camera negative, so you have best of both the worlds, performance, and then the online again, or the conform is instantaneous. Any other question right there? Okay, we had here. Mike's coming your way. Thank you.
I wonder if any of you have tried using compute in the cloud in addition to cloud.
Sorry, can you speak up a little bit?
Have any of you tried using compute in the cloud, like remote workstations, render farms?
I can just say this. We have tried that. One of the things that we didn't want to do when we started working remote was to use screen sharing I think it abstracts things for the editor. Like even if that's a low latency solution, I want people to work on their own systems locally, and even if that requires them to cache what's on there, that's just always a better experience for the editors. I've never worked on a screen share solution that I didn't want to throw out the window. Okay. So there. Said it.
Dennis?
Yeah, just to add to that, Bemo Studio is fully cloud. So we do all of our compute, all of our rendering, all of our storage is in the cloud. So all of the projects that we run, essentially, my Airbook is a terminal that I just connect to our ecosystem. And, we have contractors and freelancers that still use their local workstations. Color and finishing for us is not happening in the cloud. That's still happening, at a facility. We do a remote session, like using Evercast. But as far as all of our design animation, it's all cloud. Yeah, we're using AWS for our compute. We rent GPUs for rendering, and we use LucidLink for our storage.
Thank you. One more question, anyone? If not, then I would like to thank the panel for joining us today. Thank you, LucidLink, for hosting this and for asking me to talk to you guys about everything. Hope we answered some of your questions and concerns about LucidLink, and I'm sure you can find out where you can get some more information.